that I wanted to get paid what I was worth, not what
Yeah.
a company tell me what I was worth.
Yeah.
And I knew it'd take time. It took me about 8 or 9 months to close my first deal, which is 30 grand. It was half my salary.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
I was making before, 3 years prior. And then it was almost like I was on a rocket ship. I had all these other deals right behind it that did really well at the age of 23.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and I'm so happy to be here. The show is called Unveiling Journeys, and if you're seeing it for multiple times, welcome back. If this is your first time, I want to let you know I'm a huge fan of the power of masterminds, high-level networking groups, and the power of like your inner circle of all the people, and really who it is that you're bumping shoulders with, going out there and just killing it. My favorite way to meet people is in person, obviously in Zoom nowadays. And I want to tell you just a tiny bit. Josh and I met in an actual real estate seminar where we were the experts in the back of the room, showing people they could change their lives by flipping and holding houses and all this jazz. And what's funny is some of those people in the room, they're just kind of there to be there. And we were one of the ones that was like in the back of the room doing deals. So it was like, yes, these are the kind of people I want to stay and hang out with, the ones that are moving and shaking. And I'm so privileged to be able to have him on today so that he can share his story. So with that, welcome, Josh. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany. It's always a pleasure to see you and hang out with you, even if it's virtual. Yeah. So Josh Zieglowsky, age 45, got 4 kids, beautiful wife since '01. I've been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 23. Got going, well, actually, age of 21. I did mortgages before, and then 23 is kind of like when I say my true journey of real estate investing and then entrepreneurship. Got into just regular flipping houses, wholesaling, was doing about 30 to 50 a year. And then come about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I got into commercial. I started out in multifamily, mobile home parks, and boutique hotels. And then shortly after, got in the triple net game of shopping centers, surgical centers, flex industrial and dental offices. And then come 2021, I co-founded a company with a few different people, few different partners called ERC Specialists. Kind of put me on the map a little bit just because it ended up being the largest in the country in that niche. In Utah, we were the second fast growing company. We went from us, there was a couple of us to 280 employees in 18 months. We did 1.8 billion in sales, helped 70,000 businesses, 50,000 affiliates, and paid out 300 million in commissions. And so with that, I'm already working on other ventures, but I always came back to my roots of real estate. I'm a big real estate guy, and so is my wife. And we've involved our kids in it. My oldest just graduated high school last week, and so he's already en route to start an internship with a good friend of mine, Pace Morby, in a couple months. And so really excited about that.
Love it. You are doing so many things right now. So let's do this. Let's go back in time to the very beginning and weave a little bit slower through your entire journey of this because, man, as you know, being either an entrepreneur and in the game of real estate, there's like some highs and lows and all these people that pour into us. So I know you said you're in Salt Lake. Tell me, you're born and raised there. What did you want to be when you grew up? Like, tell me from the beginning.
Yeah, love it. So I'm always been big. I'm a jock, sports. Grew up, I was a 4 sport athlete in a small town of like 3,000 people. So being that it was football, basketball, tennis, and track. And that was more in a high school. When I was a kid, my parents would just put me in all this stuff. I excelled the most in basketball and football. I ended up playing a little bit of junior college basketball, and grew up that way in Utah, and then met my wife when I was a senior. She was a junior. We dated for about probably 3 years, 4 years until '01 is when we got married in August of '01. So we're coming up on 24 years in
Yay.
2 months. Yeah. Next year will be our 25th. We're really excited. And it feels like we're just starting sometimes, like we enjoy each other a ton and we have a great time together. Um, I worked in sales, just like I worked for Sears at the time, selling appliance electronics. You talk about the good and the bad, being that I talk about this on my podcast, more so of my bad stuff. When I first got started, school doesn't teach like financing, how to balance a checkbook, all that kind of stuff. And so being that I was making money and then not the pandemic, 9/11 hit, I lost my job. And back then I was making about 60 grand a year. Back when I was 21, that was a lot of money. Then I was cut off and I still wanted to live the same, but not I was still trying to find a job. I thought I could get a job during that time. I couldn't. No one would hire me. I could get a job that was like 20 grand a year, but I just bought a house. So over the course of about 12 to 18 months, we declared bankruptcy because I was living off credit cards and I was the age of 21, 22. And so really embarrassing to be a newlywed and have this wife that, it'd be understandable if she wanted to leave me, basically, because we're 2 to 3 years into marriage. I'm declaring bankruptcy. Like, what future do you have with this guy? And she stuck with me, and we stuck with each other. And so far the rest is history. We've got beautiful kids, and we have a great relationship with our kids. And yeah, we just like to have fun and travel. And but yeah, so really that's how I started. And I went to a class kind of like where you and I met. Someone was kind of I was searching for something that I wanted to get paid what I was worth, not what a
Yeah.
company tell me what I was worth.
Yeah.
And I knew it'd take time. It took me about 8 or 9 months to close my first deal, which is 30 grand. It was half my salary
Wow. Yeah.
I was making before, 3 years prior. And then it was almost like I was on a rocket ship. I had all these other deals right behind it that did really well at the age of 23. So
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Was it one of these like little 3-day, you pay and you go to like a coaching and you hire them to
it wasn't
what was
like
the thing they leaned into? Like, oh, you should go flip a house.
Yeah, so the gentleman, his name's Jeff Rappaport. He was my first mentor. What's funny is I'm in a commercial mastermind group now called Commercial Academy, and he is now a member of that as of like 4 or 5 months ago. So it's kind of cool because I've said to everyone, like, hey, this is my very first mentor 22 years ago. Now he's in our group learning, wanting to get into the commercial side. But he wasn't those ones that you kind of see that you and I met at, that it's a lot of different people. These people knew each other. It was a local market mastermind, not mastermind, just a class, mentorship. It was like $7,500. Me and two other people split it. So we did 3 ways. And even then I had to put on a credit card. I didn't have $2,500 in the bank, and I wasn't going to go to my parents or her parents to ask for money. We just said, let's do this. Our credit card, because we had bankruptcy, was probably 15, 20%, you know? And so we knew we were taking a risk, but we also said, of all the time to take a risk, we're in our 20s. Let's do it now. So we have a lot of time to make up for it. And sure enough, it worked out for us over the long haul.
Man, that's an incredible perspective to think, all right, we're in our 20s, starting off, I'm losing my butt, right? And obviously she stayed by your side, which is incredible through the highs and lows of it all.
Yeah.
And then going and taking this seminar, 9 months to get your first deal done. I mean, like, if you're like me, like the first deal that I got done, I thought, I can do this, right? Like once you've been through the entire process, because until then it's just in the books and it's being told to you that it's easy or that it's follow these steps. So from there, what did that branch into?
So it branched into so remember I split it with two other people. It ended up branching into a gentleman, one of the three. We ended up becoming business partners. We then had a system in place where we brought on a lot of our old mortgage officers we used to work with and said, hey, why don't you do just a piece of it and then we'll finish it. And then end up doing quite a bit. But here's the thing: we end up learning maybe 2 or 3 real estate skills, and then the mortgage meltdown happened, and that eliminated our skills. We had to learn more skills. And then because there's 30 or 40 different ways to make money in real estate, from lending money to, notes to wholesaling, flipping, all that kind of stuff. Right. And so we had to learn some new skills, and we were kind of behind the ball game or behind the 8 ball because we literally mortgage meltdown happened overnight for us. Like literally like, oh, this bank got closed today. This bank got closed tomorrow. You start hearing all this. You're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
And you just start just scrambling, and then all of a sudden you're like, we need to learn something else. And then it was like you don't learn something for like 6 to 12 months, so you're like, oh man, we had a lull there that we definitely lost money with some of our deals because we bought at what was kind of the average market to then it dropped. I mean, I talked to some people that they were listing condos for 300 grand, and then 9 months later they're selling them for $60,000.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Same
That
over here. It
happened.
was crazy
That
to
was
see that.
it was crazy. And then here's the thing: could we see it again? We could. You never know.
Yeah.
And so you always want to have like all those different, tools in your tool belt to make sure you can adjust based on what the market's doing. And so that was a learning experience for me. And it's funny we see a learning experience. Like I was telling my kids the other day, because I want them to do some stuff during summer school because they just graduated last week, and they're like, "Dad, you don't do any more education." I'm like, I'm working on education every day.
Every
Like
day.
it's a learning experience. If I don't get a learning experience per day, I'm like, what did I do wrong today? I always want a good learning experience, whatever that is.
And that also entails sometimes if you're not getting it organically in the deals that you're working on, quite often we're going to go seek out people that have been there, done that to teach us how to avoid the pitfalls of the next stage where we want to level up. Tell me some of where that went to. Like, when was the next time you had opportunity that you were able to like jump onto, or maybe even some of those motivational things that help you keep clinging on through this crisis of the mortgage, just banks dropping like flies?
Yeah. There was a time that like literally I don't think we closed a deal for almost a year and a half. It just they're just you start analyzing your numbers and you're like, wow, it's just not fitting. Sometimes people forced to buy something just to say they bought something, but we kind of took a step back and says, man, we're losing money on these deals. I don't want to lose more. So let's just kind of, pull our chips back a little bit and kind of watch the market. And I mean, there's things that you're like, oh, we should have bought at this point, because then it increased over 2, 3 years. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I mean, they always say you want to buy low, sell high. Well, no one knows where the low is. They only know after 3 years, like, oh, that was the low. So you try to buy around there. If someone hits it right on the button, good, that's awesome. But I've never hit that. I wish I would, but I try to do something around it. What can I do now I see a trend going up? And so that's kind of what we did. But there was a time that it was, and it's funny because in real estate investing, especially back then, it was kind of lonely. You don't,
Yeah.
you don't know as much real estate investors as you do today, especially when, cell phones were barely even getting used. We were using pagers, and knocking on
Right.
doors.
And then let alone texting, it was like 10 cents a text. How many of these are you going to send?
I
So
know.
we were like
I know.
on the phone with people doing bandit signs. I was knocking on doors whenever all the short sales were falling out in Florida. It's like, wow, to think where I've come from, that you can just text or an app, or, just it's so simple almost now to
Yeah.
think, well, we've made it through. So a year almost to not do a single deal. And you guys luckily had each other to kind of lean into in this. Like, some people solopreneur this or watch their whole company fall out. What'd you do after that?
Well, we actually kind of went our own ways. We were actually just texting earlier today, and we probably text each other, I don't know, half a dozen times a year. And just happens that he texted me this morning about something else, and we just kind of kept in touch. So our age difference, I was 23, he was 53. So he's in his retirement years. And so he was just asking questions, because I live in the town that I grew up in, which he lives here too. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you moved back. And I moved back here in 2023. So, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so we were texting, we have a great relationship, but there was a contention a little bit, only because during that mortgage meltdown, we had someone that was renting from us. It's kind of a long story short, but it was end up being pushed to the state. They tried to get involved and they tried to pull us together apart. And over the course of 3 years, it went through the court system, and then we were both dismissed. But it definitely, you end up having an attorney on both sides, and then at the very end, we're like, gosh, this whole time, the court system was just pulling us against each other, and it didn't even need to happen. And so, but that's another learning experience. That was something that I tried to go by the book on every time. I thought we did something wrong, which they said we did, but then we didn't. What it was they said you had to have a third party service to sign on a lease to someone to rent your house, and we didn't. These people were 75, and they're like, oh yeah, we're throwing the book at you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 20 now, I'm 26, 27. uh Anyways, the judge was like, hey, I can't find this statute. This is after 3 years, and it was thrown out of court, and we're, like I said, we're good friends now and stuff. But it was shaky, and so going through those experiences, it just, I don't know. Now, when I hear something, I'm like, I kind of have a candy shell on it. Like, let's see what happens. It's not so bad yet, you
Yeah,
know?
figure it out. I'm tend to be like, "Oh, innocent until proven guilty. Let's go figure it
Yeah,
out." And now you
same
could
way.
darn near Google everything, or an attorney's not that far away at this point, I mean, it's worth however many
Yeah,
hundreds per hour
for
to
sure.
save your butt. Oh my gosh. Alright, so you guys kinda separated. Where did you start your next adventure?
So I was kind of searching for something to get into commercial real estate. I didn't know what it was because I thought when I was doing residential, you had to have a lot of money to get into commercial. That was my assumption.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just like when you and I met. I've had a lot of people come through the doors and wanting to learn real estate investing. The first thing they always say is like, "If I had money, I could kill it in real estate. I'm like, well, that just tells me you're not educated because there's so much money out there. You just don't know how to ask for it. And that means you're not educated. It's the same thing with commercial real estate. I thought you had to have a lot of money, and that was the assumption. And they say about assuming. I was assuming we're make an ass out of you and me. But with that, I was like, oh man, maybe I'll use my same advice and I'll just go find education and see what happens from there. And that's what I did. And I went with a gentleman. He was my first mentor. He didn't. I'm not going to say his name, but he didn't know what he was doing. But he got me in the game. So I invested a lot of money, almost six figures, for his mentorship. And at the very end of it, I was like, after about a year and a half, I'm like, man, he doesn't know too much about this, but he did teach me some skills I still use to today. So he got me in the game. I found my second mentor, Scott Shea, with the Commercial Academy. And then I was really skeptical though, because, being when you're around the seminar side, you're a little skeptical. And so I asked a lot of questions to people, even existing members, to people that are kind of searching for it, even Scott himself. And, the smell tests just continued to pass,
Nice.
and then I became a member of that group. And, that was 7, 8 years ago. And so I got in my first deal with no money. It was a $2 million shopping center. We bought it for 2 million. We ended up selling it just this last year for 3.8. So I ended up making about 400 grand. But during the time I had it, my ownership percentage, I was making 30, 40 grand a year.
Huh.
And I was like, man, if I can just stack this and get more and more of these. And the thing is, when you're raising money and people say, how much money do you have into it? And you say, nothing. I don't have it. You know, they're skeptical for sure. But if you're able
Oh
to
yeah.
show numbers on something, and that's the education piece I'm talking about, I was able to be educated enough to say, okay, I'm not going to get yeses 100%. I'm going to have some no's. But the people that end up coming in with us now, they want to invest with me for life because they've doubled their money, and they made money during the, almost like 12 to 14% a year, because we got a cap rate so high shortly after we bought it.
Yeah. This is one of those fun things where people that are trying to math the math because they're skeptical, they're like, wait a minute, what's your return on that? It's like, okay, if you have a $0 entrance and you have any return, if it was even a penny, it's like infinite, right? It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just know it's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's incredible. So first commercial building, all said and done, but at the same time, like when you did your first residential, it's like, what? If this requires no money, just a little bit of my effort and the connections I have, how many more could you do? What happened next?
So the same thing. I was like, man, we just did this one. I'm going to continue to find other ones, and I'm going to talk to the same investors, see if they're interested. Some more than half of them were. The other half just either didn't have it or they weren't interested. And it was a surgical center out of Atlanta. We got it. In place cap rate, almost 9.5%, 50% occupied, for about 2 million. Again, it was right. We just decided a good base hit for us, or a double, was about a $1.5 to $3 million purchase. Don't, and I, because the reason being is during that time when we did like 3 deals, we're like, hey, let's go get a big deal. And we put a $15 million deal under contract. And about 2 months later, we gave it back. Well, in other words, we had a due diligence phase period where we can get our money back, and we got our money back. And so, but we also said, man, that's not what we want to go after. We want to stick to that $1.5 to $3 million range and just continue to get tons of these. And we did. And we had a great partnership. Since then, one of the partners went kind of started his own thing. We're still friends today. That's what's cool about commercial real estate, is like, you don't have an immediate partner that you're supposed to be a partner for a long time. It's kind of the who, not how. I always preach on different podcasts, is rather than trying to figure out how to do it, figure out who can do it with you. And those two other partners, one was really good at like kind of underwriting, taking care of the books, all that stuff to the investors. I was good at finding the deals, negotiating, raising a little bit of money. The other guy was good at raising money, and so I kind of helped him out a little bit, but he did most of it. And so, just continue to use that. And then now, I am looking at bigger deals now, just because you could say I've graduated certain pieces, but I'm still looking. When people bring me a $2 or $3 million deal, I always tell them like, hey, let's get into it, because we can raise 500,000 and be into this like in the next 30, 60 days.
Man, that's cool. So you have the ability to let people bring these deals to you, and you've got like the trifecta. You've got the underwriter, the like paperwork person, the capital raise person. So if someone's like, I found it, what can I do with it? At this point, what is your favorite way that if someone's like, I need to know you, like who do you want to even reach out to you for anything that you have that you could help people with or that you represent?
Yeah, I think what you could say put me on the map is the ERC company, ERC specialists. I say that because, 50,000 affiliates and one of my top people made close to 25, $30 million in commissions. And so I was always searching for new opportunities for the affiliates because they're always asking me, like, what's the new thing, man? And so I found two different ones. I mean, I need to go over on the podcast here, but these are ones that, when you talk about people searching me or what I can do to give back, is finding opportunities for people to not stop what they're doing, just something that they can do on the side through a networking and just a quick conversation. Because these are conversations that could take 1 or 2 hours that you can make $10,000, $20,000, payday type of thing. So that could turn into, and that I think that's what we kind of found, and kind of building that reputation uh, through trust and what we did as far as with the ERC program.
Man, that's incredible. And because you're working on all these new things and people now are seeking them and they're bringing them to you, you're vetting them out, you're negotiating them, right? Like stuff that you're great at doing. You're hopefully going to be always one of these people. It's like, let's help bring it to you first so that we could potentially bring it to 50,000 people or more, wherever it ends up going. What is your favorite way that if someone's like, I want to know more about this, like, how do you want them to come find you?
I think the easiest way is, so I think the channel kind of starts with my Instagram. I'm trying to like create things through my podcast, my social media team. I just take, if we can create education and content, that's what I want to do. Even if no one reaches out to me, I've had people all the times like, dude, like I got a message on LinkedIn on a private message today. I did like, dude, I love your content. I just, I don't want anything from you. I just think it's awesome. I'm learning a lot, like when you put stuff out. And that's just, it disseminates from my Instagram, which is the Josh Z. People call me Jay Z, but that's taken already. And so people, I have the Josh Z, and that gets disseminated to Facebook, LinkedIn, and now X. But it really starts with Instagram. So usually I'll put something out once a day, and usually it's like a little snippet, 30 seconds to a minute of something that, whether it's something I learned from my bankruptcy that we talked about, to something, that a new opportunity, that was something that I talked about in the podcast, yes, or on the reel yesterday.
Man, that's incredible. What's the name of your podcast so everybody can go follow it?
It's the Flat Bill Investors podcast. It starts in YouTube because our producer used to produce for Mr. Beast. So we start with YouTube, and then it gets disseminated between Spotify and then Apple and then whatever, I don't know Android's name, Play Store.
Yeah, something like that, right?
But those three. But it starts with YouTube.
Nice. That's awesome. Those are always fun because you get these little shorts. And those, honestly, even on my show, I love the shorts because it's like, we had a great story. I love where you've been, but all those like extra little nuggets that you get to share from your learning experience, or the piece of advice you clung to from your mentor, or like the lasting piece of advice, those end up making it like, man, maybe that's what someone needed today. And it was 30 seconds to shift their entire day, their perspective, their mindset. Because let's call it what it is, some and a lot of this stuff could never happen without somebody at least knowing, like, keep trying, don't give up, right? Like having a positive mindset in this, because when you get kicked in the shins in real estate, a year without a deal, you could be like, well, this sucks. I could just go back to, looking for a job type of a thing. That's what
Exactly.
you sort of dust yourself off and keep going again. Tell me some, or, some of, or one of your favorite like nuggets or quotes that you've had really consistently be a great piece of advice you like to give to people.
My favorite one, I've heard this from, I don't know if it's Walt Disney that said it, or maybe J. Paul Getty or someone, but it's just, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Ugh.
Uh, and I just feel like that is my story. Like, people always say like, oh, you want to work smarter, not harder. That's whatever you want to say there. It is what it is. So that makes sense. But I worked pretty damn hard. I worked hard, whether it was smart or not. I just worked hard. I was always trying to be present for networking opportunities. I was always trying to be present to, when you and I were out of town together, and we had 2 or 3 other consultants there. I was trying to be present of taking advantage of the opportunity of someone is there, lives in a different city, they're away from their family too. We're all trying to work for a paycheck. But what can I do to take advantage of a relationship? I was, and that to me is still working hard. I could have went back to my room and just watched Netflix or ESPN and do whatever, go to the gym. And I did that sometimes. But as far as like taking that extra time and maybe get less sleep to work harder, that was my thing, is because of all the times I look back, of all the grit, the blood, the sweat, the less sleep, all that kind of stuff, it's made it where I'm luckier because of it.
Man, that's incredible. I agree with you. I just try to be persistent, consistent. I try to be present. Like, I even, we used to introduce ourselves like, what are you here for? I'm like, I'm away from my family. I'll get here early and I'll stay late because what am I going to go do in my room when I could hang out with the ones that really are hungry enough to show up early? And you remember they were getting there at 7 and we're like, the event starts at 9. What are you doing here? Or, the ones staying till 7, 8, 9 and they're catching us at the bar to have, like an appetizer. Those are the ones that I know are going to press forward in the hard times. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, this has been incredible. Tell me what have you got on the horizon? Like, what do you want to share with people that you're gonna start working on, or that you want to unleash right now?
So there's two opportunities. One's called Weld Trio, another one's called Storm Checks. Maybe I'll just talk about Storm Checks today, just because it's more, you do a lot of real estate, but basically it's a company that the founder has been around for 20 years. He had a non-compete, sold his company for a little over 100 million. But basically what he's done is he worked for Allstate and State Farm, doing being a insurance adjuster, just like I usually joke about Mr. Incredible. At the very first of that movie, he's an insurance adjuster. The lady walks in and he's like, sorry, ma'am, I can't help you do this. I can't help you to call this person. I can't help you do that. And the boss is hearing around the corner and she leaves all happy. And he comes in, he goes, Bob, you can't do that, Bob. You work for the shareholders, and then he says, you're fired. And he punches him through three walls. This is what that guy did. He worked for a company, I won't say which ones. He worked for two of them over several years. But basically, he had a goal in place. Do not go above 30% of an insurance claim. So if someone, a commercial real estate owner, says, hey, I want to file this claim, he had a goal in place. Let's say the insurance adjuster adds it up, like this person get $1 million. He's offering him $200,000 because he wants to stay below that 30% goal. So he did that for years, and then he left them and started his own firm. And then he said, okay, if you get 200 grand, anything above 200 grand, I get 30% of it. It's a contingency. I don't charge anything, no admin fee or nothing. And so if he gets 800 grand, he gets 30%. The client gets the other piece of it. Right. So I tested this out with, you talk about due diligence. I tested that with 5 of my properties. 2 out of the 5 qualified. And one of them actually sold a year ago. So there's still a 3-year statute of limitations. You can still file claims. So I got a claim on that. And then the other one, I'm in the process. I got a reward letter is what they call it. Then you get the money in about 6 or 9 months. The other 3 didn't qualify. But what's still cool about that is as a landlord owner of commercial real estate, sometimes you just hear about a storm and you're like, was there damage? Okay, sweet. There wasn't them. Well, you could actually file a claim based on the storm still. So now my name's in the database. And so we did it based on the same affiliate model. And so like we did a trade show called the Best Ever Conference in Salt Lake by Joe Fairless. And we did close to $30 million in claims over that 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
We get 30% of it. So the company brought in a little over $9 million. And then affiliates get between 5 to 15%. So let's say 10% of that. So, there's people that have referred business in that we've already filed claims on that they're getting, $20,000, $30,000 checks. So that's
Wow.
kind of the on the real estate side, the best thing on the horizon I've done besides, the stuff I do with commercial real estate stuff.
This just goes to show it's like if you don't know what you don't know, you're probably paying too much or you're not making enough. Or it's like, don't bury your head in the sand. Look and know people and network and just put yourself out there. Like, what am I doing that I'm missing right now in this by even just regular stuff that you're doing? I mean, down to like when I go to checkout, I'm like, you guys don't have a coupon, do you? And they're like, yeah, we do. I'm like, see, like, I don't know. You just kind of feel around for whatever's out
Yeah.
there. But I never even considered this, that there's probably money left on the table that they were trying to negotiate because they're in their own best interest. Man, this is stunning. I love
Yes.
this so much. So everybody go out right now. Go look at all the URLs down below. You're going to go follow the real Josh Z and on all of his channels, go check out his podcast. He's dropping nuggets and bombs and truths and life lessons. And hey, I'm so happy that we got to hang out today. Thank you so much, Josh, for your time. And I can't wait to chat again. And those of you guys are hanging out still, the made to the very end. Awesome. I'll see you guys on the next podcast and you guys have a great day. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you. Take care.